Hi, you made it to my channel, the Niche Gaming Hub. Today I'm going to review the Khan 317 Sentinel. As with all my reviews, they're based on my New Game Plus settings and regions where I use the trucks. At the time of this review, I have completed Kola Peninsula, half of Yukon, and started scouting Amur, where you can get this truck for free actually. I bought the Khan 317 Sentinel from the truck store when I was scouting Taymyr, and then later used it in my other test file in Michigan. This review will start with the footage from my time in Michigan and then move to my time in Taymyr. The New Game Plus rules I select give me a good balance between difficulty and fun, providing a mostly realistic simulation. I start off with more money than hard mode and get 3 times more income per job so that I can buy some extra trucks and upgrades. I had maxed out the rank, which is rank 30, when I was finishing up in Alaska. So any truck or add-on that is restricted based on rank is already open up to me. But as far as trucks that you have to find first in the world, even with my rules, you can't use them until first exploring them in the region where the game puts them. My rules allow me to sell trailers and trucks back for 50% of their value. But on the flip side, my rules settings make automatic truck recoveries and auto-loading 4 times more expensive, and even fuel 4 times more expensive. They make all garage repairs cost money, and all parts repairs cost 2 times more points than normal for trucks within their region and 4 times more for trucks outside their region. Traveling between regions is paid, and when you buy a fuel add-on for any truck, you have to fill it with fuel from what you have in the region or what you transport from other regions. And I restrict contests to only 1 try, so you can't use them to farm money. I may mention hard mode every now and then, discussing how use of a truck might differ if you play in that mode, because I know many people regard it as the gold standard. Hard mode does require you to suffer through many weaker vehicles just so you can survive, whereas I prefer to have a little bit of luxury so that I can evaluate the differences between the trucks, use their advantages, and have a good playthrough. And typically hard mode is designed so you basically know where you're going. It's designed as a second, third, fourth playthrough. I still won't be able to be reckless with my money or my trucks, and some of my rules add even more difficulty than even hard mode, so the realistic simulation and challenge still exist. Now with that context in mind, let's talk about the Khan 317 Sentinel. The Ulyanovsk Automobile Plant, better known as UAZ, was founded as a direct result of World War II. In 1941, as German forces rapidly approached Moscow, the Soviet government ordered the evacuation of the ZIS Stalin factory to the east, and the equipment moved to the city of Ulyanovsk on the Volga River. In 1942, the plant was producing artillery shells and the ZIS-5 3-ton truck for the front lines. In 1943, the plant was officially separated from ZIS and became its own entity, focused on military and paramilitary vehicles. After the war, the Soviet Union needed a light, versatile off-road vehicle for agriculture and military use. By 1954, the GAZ-69, also known as the Soviet Jeep, became the backbone of UAZ's identity, and its production was transferred from Gorsky to Ulyanovsk. In 1958, the UAZ-450 was developed. It was a cab-over van built on the GAZ-69 chassis, and its rounded shape earned it the nickname Bukhanka, loaf of bread. Remarkably, variations of this exact vehicle are still in production today. In 1972, UAZ released its most iconic model, the UAZ-469. It replaced GAZ-69, featuring a simple, boxy design with a soft top and removable doors. It was designed to be driven by any soldier and repaired with a basic toolkit. It became the standard utility vehicle for the Soviet Army and Warsaw Pact countries. The UAZ-469's military version featured portal axles for even higher ground clearance, a feature highly coveted by off-roaders today. In the 90s, the fall of the Soviet Union forced UAZ to adapt to a civilian market. The UAZ-469 was modernized and renamed the UAZ Hunter, keeping the vintage looks but adding minor interior comforts. In 2005, UAZ launched the Patriot UAZ-3163, their first truly modern SUV. followed by the Pickup UAZ-2363 in 2008. These featured actual creature comforts like heated seats, air conditioning, and eventually automatic transmissions. As of 2026, UAZ continues to occupy a unique niche. While its technology lags behind global giants, its low price and unmatched repairability keep it popular in Russia, Central Asia, and Africa. The loaf lives on. The 60-year-old Bukhanka design is still being sold as a 2025-2026 model, often marketed as the UAZ Classic Commercial, and it has inspired variants like the Tabletka, used as an ambulance, and the Expedition Camp. The company has recently introduced the UAZ-Eco Zero, an electric prototype, and expanded its Expedition trims, which come factory equipped with winches, snorkels, and heavy-duty roof racks. UAZ has a history defined by wartime necessity, rugged simplicity, and a never-say-die engineering philosophy. Often called the Kalashnikov of cars, UAZ vehicles are famous for being easy to fix in the middle of nowhere and capable of handling terrain that would destroy most modern SUVs. The UAZ-2363, better known commercially as the UAZ Pickup, is a mid-size body-on-frame pickup truck produced by the Ulyanovsk Automobile Plant in Russia. It is a pickup variant of the UAZ-3163 Patriot. The UAZ Pickup was developed as a modern successor to the older UAZ-2360, which was the flatbed version of the UAZ-3162 Simbir. While the Patriot SUV was launched in 2005, the pickup version began serial production in August 2008. The UAZ-2363 is built on a classic ladder frame chassis with solid axles designed for heavy-duty off-road use rather than highway comfort. But this truck having been produced well after the 90s, when UAZ shifted its focus to the civilian market, its level of off-roading paled in comparison to its military counterparts. The vehicle is most commonly powered by the ZMZ-409 series of engines. In 2014, the pickup received significant updates to the exterior like new bumpers and LED daytime running lights, and to the interior like a new dashboard and infotainment system. The 2016 update improved safety features like airbags and ESP, and in 2019-2020, UAZ introduced the Punch Powerglide 6L50 6-speed automatic transmission, a major shift for a brand historically tied to manual gearboxes. The UAZ-2363 Pickup is a reliable, budget-friendly workhorse commonly used by farmers, hunters, and the Russian military and police for its ease of repair and unstoppable solid axle design. Beyond Russia, it has been sold under various names, such as the UAZ Kazak in South America. In 2021, there were plans to import it to the US as the Bremach Brio, but these plans were suspended due to geopolitical events in 2022, like the invasion of Ukraine and sanctions on Russia. SnowRunner's Han 317 Sentinel is based on the real-life UAZ 2363 Pickup. It can be obtained after completion of the treasure hunter task in the Urska River map of the Amur region, but you can purchase it much earlier, like I did in Taymyr. Its two highest engine upgrades, which can be shared with two other Russian trucks, are both found in Taymyr, and its raised and tuned custom suspension upgrades are both found in Amur. Since I started using this truck in Taymyr, I had to buy its suspension upgrades. Length 5.125 meters, width 3 meters, length to width 1.708 ratio. Height to width ratio average with raised or maybe a little high, and higher with custom tuned suspension, meaning too high. Weight 4,707 pounds. That's around about 2.35 tons. The in-game SnowRunner mass rating is 2135. It's almost identical in weight to the Chevrolet CK1500, both in-game and in real life. Body balance, I give it average with a race suspension and terrible with a custom-tuned suspension. It does of course get an autonomous winch available because it's a scout truck. As usual, SnowRunner does a pretty good job resembling real-life vehicles. The dimensions are based on the specifications of the UAZ 2363 pickup, and the raised custom-tuned suspension add-ons are used with the Khan 317 Sentinel, significantly adversely affecting its body balance. The body balance is so significantly affected by the raised suspension versus the custom-tuned suspension that it goes from making the truck a good truck to a bad skin, the one that I sold right away. Much like the Chevy CK1500, the Khan 317 Sentinel does not get always-on diff lock. Its configurations in the game is 4x2 rear-wheel drive, and then of course when it switches to all-wheel drive, it's 4x4. Differential lock is switchable in low gears only. This truck's all-wheel drive and differential lock functionalities come stock. They're switchable by default and no upgrades are required. The Khan 317 Sentinel is rear-wheel drive when all-wheel drive is not engaged, much like most of the game's trucks. But in real life, the UAZ Pickup was actually front-wheel drive when all-wheel drive was off. The UAZ Pickup had a part-time four-wheel drive with a 2-speed transfer case, high and low range, and the transmission was a 5-speed manual or 6-speed automatic. SnowRunner doesn't have this level of transmission depth like other simulators. You can simply switch to all-wheel drive or back off of it in any gear. And for differential lock, you can only switch to it on low gears and then switch it back off, or just change gears out of the low variants to the turn diff lock off automatically. For me, honestly, any Scout that lacks always-on diff lock makes it super inconvenient to use. You can still use it in certain trucks, very few trucks later. I eventually keep this with the right setup. But the point is that this truck is severely disadvantaged as a Scout truck. It's really annoying. But Scout trucks deal with some of the ugliest and most uneven terrain that you face, because you have to first scout the entire map before you can actually properly use it with your big trucks. So you need to know where you're going, what the terrain looks like, everything. Then you scout properly. And in order to scout, you're going all kinds of places on the map. Terrain is terrible, snow, mud, everything. So you're facing all the elements with any of your Scout trucks. So one of the things they should have is always-on diff lock. You can do it without it, it's constant annoyance to have to turn it back on and off. And it never drives as well as any Scout truck that has always-on diff lock. Huge disadvantage, but that's just like the CK1500. CK1500, in fact, did not have always-on diff lock. This Khan gets large 41-inch tires. These are MS1 mud tires, rating 0.5 in asphalt, 3.0 in off-road, and 1.6 in the mud. And 41-inch CS1 chain tires, like all the Scouts, just it's 41-inch versus whatever their tire size is. Chained is, of course, 0.9 in asphalt, 2.0 in off-road, regular off-road, and 1.1 in the mud. It gets 3 suspension types. That's stock, of course, raised, and custom-tuned. In SnowRunner, since your scouting truck constantly needs to go off-road and in deep mud to scout watchtowers and get the upgrades, which are often in the most isolated and hard to get places, you really need to get the mud tires. Now you could use the Khan 317 Sentinel on icy roads, in which case chain tires would fit the bill, but that would only work if you were using this truck in tandem with the one you're using as your main Scout, not to mention that as you progress through the game, you see less and less roads. With stock suspension, you get 33-inch tires. With at least raised suspension, you can get straight to the 41-inch tires. The ground clearance is pretty good on this truck by default, and I would actually recommend using raised instead of tuned custom suspension, because you get the larger tires with the raised and extra clearance the tuned custom suspension offers you destroys the Khan 317 Sentinel's body balance. Controlling this truck is hard enough, as I will get to in the next section. And when you add to that the instability you get with a tuned custom suspension, it gets really annoying going from one place to the other, constantly having to prevent your truck from tipping right over. The MS1 mud tires are mediocre and no better than the type all our Scouts get, but on the count of its large 41-inch tires and of course excellent ground clearance, even being a 4-wheeler instead of a 6x6, the Khan Sentinel performs very well in the mud, even better than the Responding Hercule 6x6 and definitely than the Chevrolet CK1500. The Chevy gets smaller 38-inch tires while the Razvani is lower to the ground and therefore susceptible to getting stuck in mixtures of heavy mud, water, and blades of grass. This truck's turning radius is nice and short, and steering control is pretty bad, much like the CK1500. And steering, I don't do like a separate Scout steering rating versus a main truck rating. No, I just keep it in the same. So of course all the Scout trucks are generally speaking supposed to have smaller turning radiuses than larger trucks, the hauling trucks. Steering is short, control below average to terrible. As expected for trucks of this size, it has a pretty standard short turning radius, but this doesn't seem to benefit the Khan here, much because it features a pretty bad terrain feedback handicap. In my experience, it's the Russian equivalent to the Chevy handling curse that I felt when using the Chevrolet CK1500, Kodiaq C70, and the Apache. Even on mud in low gears, you can't seem to drive it straight, no matter how hard you try. And if you make the mistake of equipping the tuned custom suspension, you're in for a nightmare of an experience. The lack of control from the terrible traction and the insane amount of terrain feedback made me hate the Khan Sentinel more than its other problems, with the wrong add-ons installed, of course. This was mainly from my experience with the Khan Sentinel in Taimyr region. I got so frustrated with it, I did sell it, but then later decided to give it a chance, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And that's why you saw some of the early footage was actually from Michigan, because I wanted to show the best performance early on before I get to all the failures and tipping over. As the regions get harder and harder, even if it's something that you could maybe put up with a tuned custom suspension and the terrible steering and everything, in an early region or get away with it, it just gets super annoying as the regions get more and more difficult, more and more demanding. So the Khan 317 features one of the most powerful engines for a Scout up until this point that we've unlocked or bought, but it ends up being more of a disadvantage than an asset. The real-life engine was a ZMZ 409051 ZMZ Pro, 2.7 liter inline 4 gasoline naturally aspirated, 149.6 horsepower at 5,000 RPM, and 173 pound-foot torque at 2650 RPM. The game engine, the highest level upgrade, is an Azov AM-4V 160. That's 90,000 torque, map runner SnowRunner rating, and 2135 is the map runner rating for the mass. That gives you a power to weight ratio of 42.155, which is very, very good for a Scout truck. It kind of makes a truck shoot up, but that also turns out to be a problem because of the bad terrain feedback. So it turns out to be, like I said, more of a disadvantage than an asset. As mentioned earlier, variants of the UAZ-2363 pickup were most commonly powered by the ZMZ-409 series of engines, which featured 135 to 150 horsepower and 160 to 173 pound-foot torque. Starting around 2007, the ZMZ Pro mentioned above became the top-tier gasoline choice, the modern standard. The ZMZ-409 engines frequently and universally got the following upgrades: chip tuning that ramped up the torque to around about 206 pound-foot, and turbocharging that increased the horsepower to well above 200. Apart from that customization, owners would most frequently get American or Japanese engine swaps that gave it 280 horsepower and 295 pound-foot torque. This truck was mainly for civilian use, so the power was not spectacular as commercially sold, but with the common swaps or customizations, the UAZ Pickup became a powerful work truck. The highest level engine upgrade the game version can get in SnowRunner better represents the turbocharged and tuned versions of the UAZ Pickup, not its default. In this game, the 90,000 torque makes it more powerful than typical pure Scouts we have access to early in the game. Now, in terms of actual usability, since the truck is so lightweight with an attached trailer, it gets weighed down and drives very awkwardly, especially in the mud. So the extra power doesn't seem helpful enough when using this truck to tow anything. Winching is okay, it can handle it if you can handle the power, but when you attach the trailer, it just weighs it down or it undoes the advantage of the raised or tuned custom suspension, the ground clearance. Whatever it does, the physics of SnowRunner here, it's terrible, terrible in the mud. I did not see this kind of bad experience even with the Scout 800 with its trailer attached. This truck with a trailer attached seems to be terrible. Maybe it's just higher to the ground and the trailer is lower to the ground. It just makes it drive so awkward, and it's like it gets stuck in the mud so often. It's terrible in the mud. With a trailer. Without a trailer, it does very well because of superior engine power and large tires. It does very, very well in the mud. But with a trailer attached, the engine power doesn't seem as spectacular or useful as one might think. When unencumbered, the Sentinel's most powerful engine, the Azov AM-4 V160, makes the truck very hard to control on anything higher than low gears. And even with the lower gears, it's constantly like you're going left and right. You do have to steer it back. You can control it on the lower gears, but very, very hard to do it on higher gears. You just cannot go fast. It's a nightmare. This truck being cursed with a terrible steering due to heavy terrain feedback and possessing bad body control, especially with the custom tuned suspension. If you add this engine power, not even trying to go very fast, you still find yourself constantly trying to prevent the truck from tipping over. You'll find it much better to go back down to its base engine, the KR-135-T, which will still be more powerful than the base game Scouts like the CK-1500, and on top of that, it's going to give you good fuel efficiency and a better chance to steer the truck with some ability to control. The Sentinel hosts a good-sized fuel reserve coupled with good fuel efficiency with the right setup. The base fuel tank is an 80-liter one, and it gets one add-on called Trunk Repair Supplies, gives you 80 liters. Another add-on called Small Roof Rack gives you 60 liters. So that totals for 220 liters. Gives you a nice amount of repair parts as well, each one of those. And those do stack, of course. These are the only fuel or any kind of add-ons that you can possibly have. You can attach trailers outside, but in terms of its frame add-ons, it doesn't add anything else besides this. Fuel consumption efficiency tops out at a level 7.4 liters per minute on the 4th gear, all-wheel drive on. That's no diff lock since this truck doesn't have always on, and of course this is the highest level engine we're talking about. Consumption range at low gears is a level 2.3 liters to 4.9 liters per minute with dips below and spikes above. That's the SnowRunner gearbox, most powerful engine, no trailer attached, on off-road terrain, all-wheel drive on, diff lock on, of course on low plus. Now if you trade out the most powerful engine for this base engine, the KR-135-T, you get a level 6.7 liter per minute on 4th gear and a level consumption range at low gears of 2.1 liters to about 3.8 liters per minute, of course with spikes above and dips below. Same specs and conditions except the engine is 7.4 liters per minute on 4th gear for the highest level engine. It's just way too much. It's really high. It's like the Scout 800. But with the lower level engine, you get at least better fuel efficiency. The Sentinel's fuel consumption is high for a Scout of this size if you upgrade the engine. So as I discussed in the previous section, you are better off using the KR-135-T base engine and not upgrading at all. These engine upgrades you find in Taymyr can be used for the YAR-87 or the Khan-39 Marshall. So you can leave this truck's engine as is. The fuel reserve is still pretty good, offering more than the CK-1500 and about the same as the Scout 800. Coupled with the base engine, you can get pretty good fuel efficiency, allowing a decent amount of scouting. I have warmed up to the Khan 317 Sentinel being an asset to my Scout fleet. This Khan attaches Scout trailers, it equips the fuel and repair parts add-ons, features good fuel efficiency, and reasonable body balance. With raised suspension, or the default, but again you don't get higher tires for that. You gotta at least have raised suspension. With the right setup, it's an all-round Scout that I place in the mid-tier of my Scouts fleet. It's one of the few trucks for which changing just one add-on or two makes a difference between getting to use an above-average Scout versus suffering through an unusable vehicle. After watching some of my reviews, many of you have suggested in the comments that if I were to change the suspension for a particular truck, or go down one engine upgrade, or use it for one type of function only, I wouldn't have had such a bad experience with that particular truck. But I found that for those trucks, making the changes you suggested would hurt the truck's functionality in one way just as much as it would improve it in another. For example, if reducing the suspension back to stock would make a truck more stable, it would also reduce its capability in the mud and off-road just as much because of the smaller tires it would be left with due to the lower suspension. As another example, reducing the engine power will give it better fuel efficiency, but would also significantly affect its towing ability and performance in the mud, affecting both scouts and hauling vehicles, but this is more essential for heavier trucks. With the Khan Sentinel, just resisting the temptations to increase the suspension from raised to tuned custom, or the temptation to max out its engine power, will make the difference between seeing this Scout as a decent addition to your fleet and running back to the garage frustrated in order to sell it at the first opportunity. Make sure to keep the suspension at raised and the engine at the base level. The Khan 317 Sentinel's body balance is average, on par with the CK 1500 with a raised suspension, but terrible if you increase it to the tuned custom. Its fuel efficiency is on the bad side near the Scout 800 if you upgrade the engine, but if you leave it at the default, the KR135-T, you get something better. Its steering and control is terrible if you upgrade the engine, but a bit below average if you use the base engine. A lot more on the reasonable side and easier to control. Using the right add-ons makes all the difference for this truck. The Khan Sentinel's base engine is still more powerful than most of our early game Scouts. Add to that its lightweight, like the CK 1500, and you get an excellent power to weight ratio, even with the default engine. But the better use of that is probably more, rather than attaching trailers, is winching them. I would actually winch with this truck what it can winch. The 41-inch tires are one of the best features of the Khan Sentinel, second only to the Chevrolet Apache in the Scout tire size, based on the Scouts that we've currently bought used. And because its base engine is better than the Apache's, its performance in the mud is very good, pretty much on par. I have noticed that while other Scout trucks get stuck in swamps, this truck swims right through. So here's my verdict. When I first bought the Khan 317 Sentinel, I didn't know that players would later get this truck in M4 after completing some Urska River map jobs. Still, I got it so that I could try it out in Taymyr, equipped with what I thought would give it the best performance in the heavy mud. After suffering because of its inherent flaws plus handicaps introduced by the tuned custom suspension and engine upgrades, I was very disappointed and sold it right away. But before I gave up on it completely in my other playthrough file, the one I use for truck practicing and testing, I tried the Khan Sentinel in Michigan with the race suspension and the KR135-T engine instead, and I saw how much of a difference just these two add-ons made. I now see it as an above average Scout that you should keep in your fleet once you get to the Amur region. So once you do the assignments and everything in Amur, my recommendation is go ahead and keep it after that. Once you get all the upgrades and repair it, all that stuff, you can just use it as a Scout there or future truck, whatever. Keep it in your fleet. It is a pretty good Scout. However, despite its value as a Scout shifting from terrible to above average in my eyes, because of the rising difficulty and the fact that you later get this truck in your playthrough anyway, I wouldn't buy it from the truck store in a region like Taymyr or earlier than Amur. It's not worth buying, that's my opinion. It's not some amazing must-have Scout. It's just great when you get it for free and you know how to get the most from it. So my verdict is don't buy it, just make sure to use it when you get it in Amur and take it back to the garage to upgrade it. It's an average to above average truck, so it makes a decent addition to your Scout's fleet, but it's nothing so special that you just have to buy it well before the game gives it to you. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Do give me your feedback. What do you think about the Khan Sentinel? Did you have much of a good or bad time as I did with this truck? I know most people consider it like an upgrade to the CK 1500, but again, you have to have the right setup. So, what did you find with this truck? Did you have the same experience? Let me know in the comments. As usual, if you like this video, don't forget to give me a like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. This is Niche Gaming, signing off.